All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Historical Commission, Thursday, May 2025. This meeting is being held in the boardroom at the Newburyport Senior Center and also available via Zoom. Please note that this meeting is with all City of Newburyport meetings is being recorded. We'll start with a roll call. Andrew Bernhardt. Present. All right. Mark Sandro. Present. Scott Clark. I believe it said he was out, right? Christopher Fay. Here. Alan Markey, are you on Zoom there?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Ed Normer.
Present.
Glenn Richards.
Here, present.
Chris Sautel.
Here.
And myself, Bill House here. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. All right, we have a quorum and we can continue. Also present with us is the planning department, Caitlin Sullivan and Andy Port, and Chris and Joy is taking notes. And is that?
No.
No, okay. All right, well, we'll move on to the demolition delay carried over from our last meeting at 287 Merrimack Street. We'd like to, who wants to go ahead and present the new plans and.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, thank you. My name is Ben Roberts from New Town and Acosta. With me tonight is Eileen Graff and Jay Caswell of Caswell Development. Here for 287 Merrimack Street. As you mentioned, we were continued from April 24th, where the commission voted that the building was historically significant and considered for preservation and voted for it to be perfectly preserved. Since then, Eileen's updated the plans. There's been a site walk, and we feel that we've done a good job of meeting the commission's concerns about the plans and look forward to presenting them to you tonight. So with that, I'll give it to Eileen.
Thank you, Ben. So, actually, Caitlin, do you mind if we go to first drawing? Rendering. Awesome. Yes, thank you. So, since our last meeting, some of the concerns that the commission had was about the front dormer. So what we did was we then took that shed dormer and shrunk it by 2 feet. I also slid it back towards the rear. Originally it was 3'6", so now it's 6 feet from the front, away from the street, from the front plane. Additionally, the sort of plane that the windows are in, I pushed that inbound, say towards the ridge, away from the outer wall to increase the amount of roof that you're seeing and also lessen the amount of wall that we're seeing for the dorm itself. On top of that, the 2 end windows, it's 5 in the middle and 1 on each end. So I removed the windows on the end, so lessening the quantity of glass, as glass tends to sort of catch your eye more. It has the reflection and often shows up as dark or glass. So by removing them and having clapboards instead helps sort of neutralize some of that volume. So that was an additional change that we did. And again, sliding it away from the street, which was some of the concerns of the commission. That happens on both sides. Then on actually, if we go to the next drawing, we should be able to see, I'm sorry. There we go. Another thing was that middle building, the existing addition on the back, there was comment about why bother with the dormer. So in what I did in this round was remove that little bit of cheek wall, the original roof line, and it's just kept the pitch of the dormer continuously on that form. So that got simplified. And then on the next drawing, we can see on the back, the garage dormer. That as well got a change where we went from 6 lights to 2/2. And likewise, I neglected to mention the dormers on the front also changed from 4 light to 2/2 double hung. So those were the changes that we did since we last met and tried to sort of meet some of the concerns that the commission had by minimizing the impact of the dormers on the front in particular.
Great. Anything else to add about the new designs?
Those were the only changes.
Okay. I guess we could open up to public comment if there's anyone online or here in the room with us now that would like to speak about this demo delay. Someone like it? All right, then I will close public comment. I'll open up to the commission. Anyone want to kick us off with some comments, questions, concerns about the dormer changes?
I don't see anyone springing forth, so my usual outspoken stuff. No, seriously, first of all, I have to compliment both the applicant and you, and as the architect, and that you've made some positive improvements. I think from the historic house back, frankly, at this point, I don't have any issues. But the dormer on the historic structure was still bugging me, so I went back to the standards to see if it was just me or if there was something concrete I could lean on. So I'm referring to the Secretary of Standards for rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is when you're not preserving or restoring something to its traditional use, but you're rehabbing something for either a newer or more modern contemporary use. And the second character, there's 2 points that particularly apply in this case. The second one is the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. In other words, what's being avoided is changes that change those. And there was another one, number 9, that says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. And some of the things you did do that, like somewhere was mentioned, so I don't know if Ben mentioned it or if we mentioned it today about something about coloration of the roofing materials and so forth. So, clearly, there's an understanding there. But what I personally came back to, I'm not speaking for anyone but myself here, is that the character of the historic house, that's, I'd say, like where that first edition starts. I consider that front part, the highest ridge line there as the quote, the historic structure, real for all intents and purposes. It just, the dormer just is not really compatible with that architectural style. So that's kind of where I stand on it. Everything else I thought is fine.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Question, I think some photos were shown of the neighborhood. Are there any other houses in the neighborhood close and adjacent to this particular structure that actually have dormers? Could you refresh our memory on that?
We can, yeah, so actually, thank you, Caitlin, that first photograph is fine. This is if you're traveling from town, heading out of town towards the property, 253 Merrimack, so that's a dormer on both sides of that structure. In the next slide, 247, even that's on the corner of Oakland, I don't think that's Broad.
Might be,
No, that's Ting.
yeah,
That's
it might be
Ting, sorry.
10, yeah.
Ting and Merrimack, and so you can see that shed dormer there, again, heading towards the property. One more. 12 California, just around the corner from this one. It's a shed dormer, another one, 15 Oakland. Another one. 35 Oakland. So as you read through the neighborhood, there are a lot of examples of it.
Mhm.
In fact, even right behind, if you look at the back of this property, on the wall, they all have shed dormers on. Directly behind, one to the left, also on the rear of the property. So, and I know that's the rear, but it's more that this is a vocabulary, these shed dormers, that's evident in the neighborhood. Adjacent neighborhood, so Was there more, Caitlin?
A few more.
Yeah, 19-21 Woodland. 22 Woodland, another shed more. 3 and 8 Forester. 13
And as you can see, a lot of these aren't compatible with the by right
I
standard.
did a lot better than that, though.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's true. For that reason,
Right, exactly.
in fact, that's,
That's it.
I'm not even sure that you could call it over.
I agree, yeah.
So,
I rest, I rest my case
Yeah.
after 7 years of where it's gone.
Anyone else on the commission have comments?
I wasn't here, so I won't weigh in on this property, because I wasn't here for the original presentation.
Look, yeah, but you're here for this, so it's,
It just, like, I'm just sitting here ruminating, like, I don't think I've ever stood in a room where there's a dormer. So I don't know what it's like. I know what it looks like from the outside, and no matter what style, you can go back through them again.
Yeah.
It's not, no offense to your work, because that's what the client's asking for. It just looks weird, it looks incompatible. And so that's just my opinion. But I don't know somebody's gonna have to explain to me like very shortly, because I want to see what's like, what's the advantage of putting that in the attic, because that's what it is.
sure,
Nice, do I have like a small area I can stand up in?
exactly.
Yeah.
Then what am I doing? You know what I mean, like, is there a bed? I'm asking seriously, I'm not trying to be
No,
liberated.
no.
Cause I have a 3rd floor to my house, but it doesn't have a dorm,
So
but I
that-
can stand,
Right.
and sit, and
That's fair. So this has a staircase up already, and so, but without dormers, there's only, if you were to describe it, maybe right under the ridge.
Mhm.
And basically you could say about a third of it is of a comfortable height without hitting your head. So what dormers are doing is taking that and lifting it up so that you have enough headroom.
Right.
For living space, to qualify as living space, but also you're adding light. So right now, in a length of 32 of that original structure, it only has light at the ends. And so by adding the dormers, you allow more opportunity, not just for the headroom, but also for light. So it makes it a more comfortable space, more attractive space in that,
on the inside.
on the inside. On the
Outside,
inside.
we're having problems.
Yeah.
Right, it's outside where we're having problems. And I'm just speaking in a general sense to the commission about my concern, and has been my concern probably since I sat on this commission, and kind of learning the ropes, is like. Trying to think of like a comparison, like, right now, if we keep adding dormers to properties on the 3rd floor, it's just like the pressure treated deck of 2020. You know what I mean? Where 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatever, people are just gonna won't take them off. And maybe we're just going through this cycle. Maybe that's part of the process, but.
Yeah.
It's a quote to your Malcolm, if you want, there's houses like this available, they just aren't necessarily existing in a, what does he call it? 17th century English seaport.
Mr. Freeman, so I will also say back that, the ordinance in the demolition delay section does explicitly exempt compliant dormers, which Eileen has followed the design standards for.
Sure.
So I
I got
think,
that.
yeah, so I think the reason we're here is because the ridge line changed, but, and so now we can talk about the dormers, but the city did choose to,
Well, if you want to abandon the rest of the project and just put dormers on, you can do it by right. That's your call.
I'm not kidding, just for
Yeah,
general.
let me just finish my thoughts. I want to respond to some stuff Chris said and also kind of wrap up my other comments that we saw a lot of dormers there. Probably very few, as we mentioned a minute ago, were even complied with the current specification, if you will, dimensions for by right dormers. And I would think, I'm guessing, I don't know for a fact, that a lot of those were installed prior to this kind of review process. So part of what, another undercurrent we're hearing from Chris is, well, two wrongs don't make a right, but even putting all that aside, getting back to, we're not here to impose our judgment personally, whether we like it, whether we think it looks good or bad or whatever. But we have the responsibility to adhere to, the Secretary of State's So now that's an interpretation, right? It's not a hard and fast rule like 2 + 2 is 4. If my interpretation is that on the historic structure, it changes the character of that particular structure more than more than could be allowed, so to speak. But that's my opinion, and something the other commissioners will have to see what their interpretation is based on, what are reference standards and so forth.
Yeah, can I say something just in general towards
I'm sorry.
your question about dormers? So, just like a broad stroke conversation about it, so like. A lot of these older houses that you purchase them and you try to give them more life and bring them back, right? These houses, a lot of houses were designed for a living that people don't live in anymore. I mean, people just live in a different, that people live differently than they did when in the 1800s. So what you have to do is you have to capture a little bit more area to give this a building like this another 300 years to make it marketable. So what it is something like this, like when you look at it, the position to me is, I would rather go down probably than up to gain some space, but the problem is when you get into something like this, I can't go down because of the situation of the foundation, you know what I mean? So then you end up gaining, I personally think I like the dormers. Everyone's got their own architectural idea, but so in terms of when you take a project like this on, that, this thing is in dire need of being fixed up, getting another life, we need to bring it to the stand, to a position where it's up to today's idea of living, you know what I mean? Without totally bastardizing the thing. Like, I'm gonna save the front portico, I'm gonna salvage as much as I can on this house, I'm gonna bring all the trim right back to, it's gonna look just like the old house when I'm done with it. The front edge is gonna get redone, I'm gonna try to salvage those 2 old doors, I like them. I wanna bring the character back, but at the end of the day, these houses are really, really narrow and they're really chopped up. So like you run out of room, believe it or not, really fast.
Sure.
Because they're super narrow and super long. So that's where you kind of need to weigh it as. Am I bastardizing this structure so bad that it's disgusting? I'm just trying to hack through it and like just make a buck, or am I trying to save the structure and just give it, another 300 years of life? So that's how you weigh it. Some builders weigh things differently than I do, but not all the same. I'm putting cedar clapboards back on this thing. I'm bringing this thing, this thing's gonna look like the old house. But really like going to another 300 years of life. So that's how we approach the project. It's not just to be lazy. Slamming stuff up, that's not how I approach it.
All right, I'll just give a few words on, just kind of my thoughts on it. I do think the changes were definitely respectful for what we've been asking about. But I do go back to the dormers on this style of home don't fit. And I think the Greek revival being this, this Greek pediment facing the street, it's all about that triangle shape and that element. And I know that an elevation is not the same thing as being on the street level, and you're not gonna see that as prominently, but you're gonna see it, and it does. And I think a lot of us are feeling that it still detracts from the main box, the original Greek revival. Does that kind of echo what you guys are feeling?
Yeah, it's very similar to what I was thinking. Did Alan ever join us, by the way?
He's here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Alan, do you have any thoughts or questions?
Well, I think they definitely was made, a good effort was made to mitigate or reduce the impact without a doubt. But I do, it's a kind of a catch-22, right? The idea of making that attic space habitable is great. You could put skylights in there if lighting is the issue, but I understand it's more headroom and using the floor space as much as possible. I tend to agree with what the commission is leaning towards, which is, it doesn't really fit the house. I think it leaves us in a bit of conundrum because it has an exemption to it, and there are other homes in the area that have it. So I think that for me bodes a question, I guess, off offline with us as a commission on how do we sort of manage this in the future. So I'm, you know, I would rather not see them, but I can understand the reason why that they're there. And that, you know, it's not like that's the only livable, habitable space in the house. It's not like that's the original house and that's all that's there. There's definitely some additions on the back that create additional living space. That's all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, the looking at other homes to see if they have dormers on it and like kind of comparing it, almost to me, when it's like a whole bunch of other homes have it and this one doesn't, almost to me makes me want to protect it more because it's one of the few that hasn't been changed from its original form. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I completely understand the need and the want to make these, you know, more livable spaces. I sleep in a room that's the door, you know, if I had dormers, I wouldn't bump my head as much maybe, but I also just wonder if it's necessary, and is appropriate. I think it's where I'm leaning, but, I guess, we can still put up to a motion, to review demolition plans. If anyone wanted to push that motion
Yeah,
forward.
I'll be happy to look.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
actually? So would it be considered, or is it an option to consider a gable dormer? And how would the commission feel about that? So for example, if we're looking at the bottom drawing right there, there's a two-story addition with those two windows. Next to the right of the covered porch that we're proposing in. So at one time that was a gable, right? And that a gable at that location also adds some space, not as much as a shed, but so there are some. So point being is could there be a solution here that's a combination? Could it be a gable coming into it, which you see that architecturally on these group revivals all the time? Either flat or gable is usually the sort of L coming off. And then maybe the length of the shed on the other side, because I don't think it's appropriate to put a gable on that side, could, if the commission felt that would appropriate, but I feel like that gable wants to be with the two-story below it. So on that side, if it were a smaller shed dormer, but towards the back more, is that something? If there was something in revisions to this that were a little more aggressive to bring down this length of the continuous shed, would the commission consider that? Or is it just
Yeah.
no roof change whatsoever
No.
here?
No, I don't think that anyone is saying that. I think it's more just what we've seen so far hasn't.
Yeah, I don't know if you were the architect, we had a case that this is reminding me of where it was a Victorian era, generic kind of vernacular. I want to say Walnut Street possibly. Anyway, there's the Dodge family.
Yes.
Remember that? Were you involved in that?
And we did a gable there.
Yeah, I remember, in fact, I might have been the one who suggested it or
It was
opened
around
the
the corner
possibility.
from this.
Yeah, yes, it's not far from this. But I'm having trouble visualizing exactly where that would be and stuff, so I don't know if you want to, you know, whether,
That was more towards the front.
yes.
And what I'm saying is, it was on the front right
Right.
of that one.
Yes.
So to bring
Correct.
everybody else up, that was Walnut Street, I wanna say, middle of the block.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so, yes, but that was towards the front, and in this case, it would be more towards the
Yeah,
rear on both
can I
sides.
impose on you to kind of go like this or something to, because I'm having trouble visualizing, yeah.
Oh.
I'm
want me
having
to
trouble
point?
visualizing
Okay.
how that would work. I don't know if anyone else does.
Yeah, I would be-
Yeah.
So
I would have,
if-
yeah.
if Farmer, what I was speaking of earlier was leveling off of this two-story piece, right? And you see that happen on many group levels.
So would that be coming towards us?
This one is 5 feet distance off of this plane to here. Okay, so
Okay.
that one would come out.
Oh, okay, so that wall, since it's so near the property line, I'm assuming you can't really bring that wall out much. Right,
We're right on the line.
okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so it'd be a little bit of an L configuration shape.
Correct.
If you're looking down from above, a plan view would be like an L.
So on the flip side, we could do a gable
Right,
type.
right. right,
as well for a dormer.
Yeah,
And it's sort of like a cross L. sort of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Getting
the
it.
shed that's bothering you, could we?
Well, it's not so much the exact configuration so much as it just so jars with the traditional, you know, that era structure, and I would agree with that. A perpendicular gable,
Mhm.
thing is more, shall we say, appropriate or more in keeping with that historical style and wouldn't look quite as, wouldn't, I think most people would, but probably think it's historic in all likelihood, given the improvements that Mr. Caswell is planning on making already, the place will look.
It adds a second
Yeah,
pediment.
but,
It
yeah,
kind of
so if
reinforces
you're looking
that.
from the front, you'd see a little bit of the flat side of a
Right.
gable roof, but it'd be pretty far back, right? Because where would it start? About where would it start?
Where those plasters are.
Floorboards are.
All that, so where the ridge drops down, to that, all the way back
Correct.
there?
That would be the
Oh, wow.
right side of it.
I can only speak for myself, but
Not that too.
No.
That's. Slim neighbors, okay.
what's on the other side?
Across the street.
No, on the other side, the roof on the other side, you go down the creek and sort of.
All right, well,
Anyways,
either way, we need, I assume we need to at least make a motion, to approve
Well,
the.
did we,
In the
maybe
positive.
Rich can help us out, did we vote, 2 weeks ago that it's perfectly preserved?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a 1 year demo delay, so if we vote tonight, we can do a vote. Excuse me, or not, if we take a vote and it fails, then nothing really has changed, the delay stays and they can revise the plan, come back in 2 weeks, yeah.
But we could also ask to have the new concept presented to us.
Yeah, absolutely,
Because I think that would be a way.
yeah. Rendering something, I would, yeah. agree with that.
Well, that would be in a motion.
Continuation.
On Walnut Street.
Well, technically, and I think this was pointed out last time, we don't even technically need a continuation because they're in the 1 year delay, they can come back whenever they, well, to a meeting anyway, whenever they want, just has to be noticed and all that.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, can we continue to go, so that way we
Yeah.
can just stay on.
You wanna come back in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
No.
So,
It's not even-
You can't see it. It's just you.
so you wanna do that? Now, are you able to, come with a new rendering that quickly?
Oh, yeah.
May 22nd?
Oh, you,
Do we need a motion on to do that or could it just continue?
I don't think we even really need.
You guys can even hear, because I'm away from my second. Don't go on me here, to be honest with you.
Don't say that, Caswell.
Going to Vegas.
It's,
You can attend remotely
though.
You don't want me to move Vegas. I said, Jane Chesney had spear that day, so you don't want to talk to me.
Yes,
All right.
it works for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, then, we'll look forward to seeing those plans and we'll go from there.
All right, good.
All right, thank you.
Just here behind, sure.
Correct.
That you remember, I wouldn't even see it. You saw it.
All right. So we're,
I brought the tree, 'cause I didn't-
moving on to 94 Ferry Road.
That's what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
As a reminder.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
It looks weird, it's not a technical term.
No.
What's that?
It looks weird, it's not a technical term.
No.
It's part of it defensible.
Hi.
Well, good evening, everybody. Scott Brown, local architect, and here with me tonight is Emily Costello and John Ganderent, the new owners of 94 Ferry Road, and they closed on this property, I think it was in mid-March, and closed on it with the intention of making this their home, and also with the intention of making this a development opportunity. This is a rather large parcel. It is a corner lot. Ferry Road is Plan South that runs east-west. Plan Street is to the right and runs north-south. The lot is a little over 54,000 square feet. And this lot could potentially yield 4 conforming A&R lots. The required lot size in this zoning district is 10,000 square feet. There are currently 4 structures on this property, and starting in the upper left-hand corner, this is a single-family residence built in 1958. And perhaps some of you have driven by or taken a look at it recently, and you'll see a dumpster there.
Mhm.
And the reason why the dumpster is there is that Emily and John have started doing some minor renovations to that, so they can move into it. And
Just carpet removal, things like that.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
unoccupied at the moment,
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
and the front house is as well, right?
Correct.
so then,
You're moving to the one that's 94R.
Yes, correct.
correct, yes, back left corner.
Yeah.
Red gable, front facing gable house that sits rather high off the ground.
That needs some supports.
It does.
It does, yeah, it's
Um,
bending, it's bowing.
So then, in the northeast corner, we've got a small garden shed. This is listed as being built in 1994. I think that's somewhat accurate. You know, it's in pretty good shape, but it's in dire need of a new roof. I have listed this as sort of like full demolition, but it just occurred to me that, you know, there's no reason why, you know, myself and 3 other burly men couldn't pick that up and move it across the property, and it could serve as a, you know, a tractor, tractor shed or garden shed. It's in pretty decent shape. And immediately planned south of that, there's a undersized 2-car garage. This is listed being built in 1988. All the information we have says it's built in 1988, but you know, in my time, I've seen a lot of old things. And that's clearly not built in 1988. And I'll show you some, I'll show you some pictures that, you know, and I think everybody would agree that it's much, much older than that. And it's my belief that it's probably built at the same time as the single family bungalow that is the structure immediately to the south of that. And that's listed being built in 1922. And I think that's accurate. Everything I've seen there, it's sort of an early 20th century house. So tonight, so we actually have 2 applications tonight. The first application is asking for full demolition of that 2-car garage. And the second part of it is really looking for part 1, the historical significance determination, and you know, maybe a decision as to whether or not this sort of 1922 bungalow should be preferably preserved. And if the commission decides that it is something that is preferably preserved, then I'd like to have kind of an informal decision as to what we should be doing with it, because there's lots of different options. So we got 2 parts, and I'd like to separate the 2. I will note that you know, in our application for the 1922 bungalow, I have checked the box full demolition. And that's not necessarily what we're proposing for that. It is an option. But you know, simply the online permitting portal doesn't, it either had roof line change or full demolition. Roof line change didn't, neither one of them seemed right, but I had to make a choice. So 2 parts, and so I'd like to sort of at least talk about you know, part 1, which is the demolition of the 1922 ish garage. Next slide, please. So just some, you know, neighborhood context photos. The 2 houses on the top of the page are sort of immediate abutters on Plant Street. For the most part, all of the houses, you know, on Plant Street are all, you know, kind of late 20th century houses. Lower left-hand corner sheet, the sheet, you know, is a cape that's on the corner of Plant and Ferry, immediately across the street. This is built, I think it's, I think it was listed as 1958, and then 56. Yes. And lower right-hand corner, this is 99 Ferry Road, which perhaps some of you, I think some of you were on this commission when came, you know, my office came before you a few years back for an addition off the back, and you can see this is a recent photo. They're still working on it, and it was a challenging project and a lot of sort of unsympathetic work that had been done to that house. It was very, very hard to make a sort of contiguous project with all that work that was done over the years, but hopefully they get a nice room out of it. Next slide, please. So some pictures of this two-car, undersized two-car garage, and I think it's, built in the twenties, top left-hand corner. This is a view from the front right corner off to the right there. You'll see that sort of, board and back garden shed that I spoke about, built in the early nineties. Left side of this garage, you can see a door and, sort of two fixed awning windows in the front. If we could just zoom into that front there, Kate.
I think 2 cars, a bit optimistic.
Yeah, it's about 19 by 19, so, really, really undersized. And, the garage doors are newer, but there's a lot of wonky things going on there. There are different sizes, some things
Doing a little mild
exactly.
trespassing to take
Yeah.
a look at that stuff.
Absolutely.
On the
Yeah.
driveway there, so
Yeah. Aren't exactly.
verify what it's saying is true, correct.
So those are the exterior photos, and next slide, please. So this is
I was
just,
afraid to, but I'm gonna get shot
so this is a photo, from the outside looking in, so there's some odd things happening there, and it's because this is a photo taken through the glass.
Yeah.
So some of the things that you're seeing there is a reflection, and I would actually have to perform an act of demolition to get inside, because, there's a lock on it, and you can't get in through the garage doors, so, it's a photo from the exterior looking in, but you can start to see some of the old framing there, old, very, very wide board sheathing, clearly not something that's, built in the eighties, and you can actually start to see some of the problems that this thing has. Garage slab with all kinds of issues, so that would need to be, certainly need to be replaced. And also kind of a, brick foundation, which I don't think could have been a solid brick foundation, which is certainly not something from the 1980s. And which has a lot of issues, and all of that brick is, falling apart. So you hear the request, sort of the release of the structure from demo delay.
Thank you. Anyone on board have any immediate opinions about it?
I have an opinion,
Okay.
as usual, sorry, seriously. I did take a walk around, because I was curious about this place, partly because a lot of the photos, there's so much overgrowth, you can tell it's been a while, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to get a better look, and specifically, we'll save the house for later, but on this garage, I think technically it's quote historically significant, but in my personal opinion, due to A, condition, and B, the fact that it's not anywhere near where anyone is gonna see it anyway. And C, the architectural merits are dubious. So my personal opinion is that, yes, it's historical, but either if we consider for preservation, I wouldn't, to me, it doesn't seem perfectly preserved, but that's just my opinion.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I totally agree. I went by it, I didn't walk there, but yeah, I don't even see how you get a car back there and all that, so it's got like no value.
Yeah. It's,
I think the main house is kind of attractive. The right.
The white.
Yeah, the main one.
the cottage, the bungalow.
The white one, yeah. I think it's attractive.
So,
Yeah,
Clean up the front.
unless there's any other comments, we can.
I just wanna say,
Yeah, sure.
I haven't seen it, but we've had this discussion.
yes, many times.
And garages do fall into disrepair, and I have made the case, maybe other people as well. I remember the one that we went and saw, Purchase Street, which was a beautiful old garage, back and back. It was such a mess.
Oh, yeah, I know the one.
But I made the case at the time that a garage, if it's from the twenties, it's over 100 years old, let's say, arguably, that it has historical value
Correct.
in that there weren't that many garages at that
Plus
particular
in the
time.
ordinance, that's considered historic, it's the definition, so to speak.
And so I wanna speak for the garage for 2 seconds,
Okay.
because at one point, there were historic vehicles in those garages. It's a representative of a dramatic shift in the way people were living, and otherwise they wouldn't have built a garage, right?
Yeah.
And we still, I know that maybe coming in later or something, I saw it earlier when I was looking at it, like, the case for a garage. A new garage to house newer vehicles, to keep them, so. I completely understand what Glenn is saying, it's probably, unfortunately, people don't keep up the garages.
Yeah, it would pain me a little bit to even say that, so I totally get what you're saying, Chris, Chris and I are the oldest members of this particular board, and, so we've been through
remember
many, we've been through many of these. And one of our former members was also big on, just because it's either an accessory building or a small house, doesn't mean it's worthless, But I think in this case, there are enough factors kind of weighing against it that, I'm frankly more concerned about the bungalow, but we'll talk about that when we get.
If it was a carriage house, people would be like, right?
Carriage house across the street.
Right, because it used to have a carriage in it, but like the familiarity of garages for us, because we all probably grew up around garages or with garages. Kind of makes it like, well, what's the big deal, it's just a garage. So I just always throw that out.
Sometimes just to challenge a little bit, I almost wonder whether it was
I think we might not.
built as a garage or not, and did it become a garage from just a shed, then became a garage? So yeah, that's the stuff you don't know.
Yeah, those are certainly not the original doors. But anyway.
Well, I think we should put up a motion that, we have sometimes combined them, but I think in this case, that mainly out of curiosity and just because I think it might be warranted, just keep historically significant separate, then if we pass that, then we can talk about if it's considered for preservation. So if anyone would like to make a motion that a pertinent structure at 94 Ferry Road is historically significant. Anyone like,
I'll make the motion that the garage is historically significant.
Thank you, Mr. Fales. I'll be happy to second.
all right, thank you. All right, the motion that the pertinent structure of the garage is historically significant, Mark Sandrone,
Yes.
Chris Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey,
Yes.
Ed Normer,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well, so that passes, unless we want to have any more conversation, I take another motion, that we find the pertinent structure 94 Ferry Road is considered for preservation. So anyone want to make that or
I'll make that motion.
all right, Mark, thank you. Anyone want to second that?
I will second that.
Is that Chris?
Yes.
All right, motion that the pertinent structure at 94 Ferry Road is considered for preservation, Mark,
No.
Chris Fay,
I will reluctantly vote no.
Alan Markey,
You there, Alan?
No.
Alan, can you hear us?
Yep, sorry, no.
Okay. Ed Normer,
No.
Glenn Richards,
No.
Chris Hotel,
No.
and I'll vote yay. But that does not pass, so it's not considered for preservation, so
Great. Thank you.
demo away, goodbye garage.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the pertinent structure, if it were the bungalow at 94
Okay.
Ferry Road.
So like I said, it is single family, doesn't look like it has been lived in for quite some time. It is not in, a complete state of disrepair. I think the bones there are pretty good and, it is covered with vinyl. Has vinyl windows in it. There are some, foundation issues. There are some porch issues. With it. In terms of our, future plans, full demolition is a consideration. We have some other options, but I think, for this commission, to make the decision to preferably preserve this, I think, the members, need to feel strongly about it because, renovating this is gonna be a heavy lift, for my clients. And, in terms of character defining features, there are, I don't think there are many of them here. Other than sort of like the form and the fact that it is kind of unique in terms of it is one story, and that dormer that we're seeing there on the second floor, that is somewhat of a marginal finished room up there that is like you can only access by going through unfinished, attic space. So with that said, you folks could, make your.
It's just a point of legal, whatever, without an actual demo plan review, we can't decide on whether it's perfectly preserved or not. What we can decide tonight is whether it's historically significant and whether it's considered for preservation. Because then the second part, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's considered for preservation, then at your schedule, whatever, there'd be, you decide what you want to do, let's say anywhere from full demo to restoration, whatever. Then that would be reviewed as a quote demo plan review, and then
Have public comment, and then we.
right, and there's public comment and all of that, butters
So that's what we're
notified,
looking
all
for,
of that stuff.
considered for preservation.
Right, that's
Or not. Or not.
Yeah,
And then we can have a discussion
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what,
That's, I think,
What
what you
might
have in the
happen
letter
is-
as well as.
Yeah.
I think it's just that the wording, we always get fumbled up on,
Right.
considered and preferably
Yeah.
preserved and all that.
yeah, it's an awkward one.
yeah, and I've been here many times, but to be honest with you, every time I come here, it's like the first time, so.
I feel the same way. No.
Don't give up.
Comment, discussion.
I'd like a million questions, sorry.
Yeah.
This this is,
You got a hand.
first of all, where?
Is it a point of time that?
I could try to figure out like where we are in
The
this.
site plan.
Yeah,
Oh, where is it?
sorry, 1 second.
Oh,
One
sorry,
second. Sorry, yeah, if we, there will be a public comment if we get to a point where they're gonna review demo plans, so that if it gets to the point like, hey, we think it's preferably preserved.
Can we tell you the history of the property? We used to own the property.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Emily? Yes.
And the Warwicks have owned it for 96 years.
We live on, I live on Plant Street,
The green
Four
house right
Plains Street.
behind you.
and we're not here to,
Yeah, you know anything.
we really need anything. But the garage,
Yeah, you're right.
you either take it down or it comes and falls down. There's some discrepancy in years of, the garage was built in 1922, I can guarantee that. And the bungalow was built in 1922. The house was built with all the lumber from St. Paul's Church,
The second burning,
the church that was built in 1800.
the columns in the house are from the altar.
From St. Paul's?
Yes, that's all salvaged lumber, so some of that lumber goes back to,
I wondered about those columns in the front, it's like there's.
well, just look up online that.
Kind of fancy
the
for a little
in
bungalow.
St. Paul's prior to the fire, and you can see the. But in the 90s, we rehabbed the house because you couldn't keep the heat in it, and that's when we did the vinyl siding. The vinyl windows and stuff, but everything is kind of still intact.
Or lumber in the attic.
So what's underneath the vinyl siding?
Clapboards, we never took them off, we just left everything in place.
Oh.
The red house, which was a barn,
Right.
that structure was built in the late 20s. I don't know where 1958, my father rehabbed the house, rehabbed the barn. In 1958, turned it into a house, but that barn is a lot,
Older.
or the red house is a lot older than they're saying. Because my grandparents bought that place in the 1929,
1929.
and that building was there.
Wow.
So, I mean, you just look underneath it, you can see all the beams and stuff, I mean, that's not from
They
58,
took
that's.
the house out,
Yeah.
renovated.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't think that house is on tonight's agenda anyway, the one you're talking about now.
No, but I'm just saying, the years are off on the thing.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for bringing that to us.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not against your plans, I mean, I think that you bought the property, you have every right to do what you want.
Well, we appreciate you coming in to share that.
a question.
Yeah.
What else from St. Paul's Church was in the house?
Not honestly sure.
You
There's something,
think like any of the structure might have come from it?
The full structure,
the wood, if you go up in the attic,
at the attic where they all sister together, because we've got a heavy roof, you
there's
could,
charred, they're charred.
yeah, in the bathroom, we had all the, forced their plaster off. Actually, the whole house used to be like the upstairs room. It was, we took all that off, all the boards still burnt, and some of the pine boards, I swear, 2.5, almost 3 feet wide, actual. Thank you, Austin.
What are those the sheathing boards?
Yes. They're huge. Because they don't have trees like that anymore.
Yeah.
But
They're just St. Paul's, I think it's 1740 maybe.
no,
They're St. Paul's.
yes, the building was torn down and a
After the
new,
fire.
no,
It burnt, the St. Paul burned twice,
it burned twice.
and that's when after the second burning, they built it.
It's 1800s. This is where this stuff came from.
Yeah.
And then in the 1920s, the house burned.
This is the property.
That's
The
true.
house is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, we just wanted to show off, just to give you a little.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting.
Termite issues on the property now, you know, so.
We appreciate it. That kind of information really helps us in figuring stuff out. Thank you so much for that.
On the property,
We're going to
Yeah,
living in red, it's
going
right
to,
being renovated.
but not the bond.
Want to hear a motion or, sorry, not yet?
I mean, we could take a motion, but I don't know, that there's probably more, do we have any more questions about it? I mean,
You guys?
No, I do, I have like a million questions here, but, because it doesn't look like it belongs to Newburyport, so I don't know, I don't wanna insult anybody who lives there or owns it.
The house, the bungalow?
Yeah, it just does, it looks like, to me, it's like, it's unusual, like overgrown Mississippi or something.
Yeah.
it does look like a southern,
There's
like
one like
the,
that on.
But there are
yeah,
others,
but
there are
coming
others.
up towards Port Plaza, there's some bungalows
Yeah.
like that. They even have a little-
That with the big porch.
Well, the porch is the
Well,
one.
you guys kind of.
do you guys know anything about the
I'm just
designers,
curious, like, what's the?
architects or the builders?
No,
No?
that was before my time.
Yeah, well,
I just know,
Outskirts of town.
I was told
it's
to
the-
yeah.
The outskirts.
But back then,
So may I make reference,
Yeah.
the posts that he's referencing are actually inside.
Yeah,
not the
right,
exterior
yeah.
posts. So the exterior design and posts are probably 1922 and haven't been touched since.
Yeah.
The front door is actually quite pretty.
Yeah.
The
We've
interior,
restored historical properties before, and I'm a contractor, I'm a carpenter, I'm a master carpenter, I've been a carpenter for 25 years, it's the only thing I know how to do. We just restored a Victorian over in Haverhill, and when we did the addition, I had mill runs done, I had the knives made so that all the new trim was identical to all the existing trim in the previous house. So it all ties together fluidly, and that's what I'm all about. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
Destroy any history here or anything, but you know.
We
When
actually-
things can be saved, great, but when they're too far gone, sometimes you just have to make that call.
we actually really like old houses. That's what we live, our house is like registered as 1894, but that was when the registering table was created.
Yeah.
We actually think it was 1875. And thick fieldstone foundation, super solid structure. It was built with intention.
Mhm.
This house is brick foundation that's crumbling.
And the red one is on a stone cinder block foundation, you know, so it's not even
Dark
stone.
floor.
Dark floor is,
The really thin pine floors that have no significant value, historically speaking. The, the vinyl siding, vinyl windows, deteriorating structure.
obviously an insect problem on the property with all the overgrown rotted trees. There's evidence of the woodpeckers pecking at the houses because of the insect problem, and there's holes everywhere. And I've sat in the property and watched the birds go to town on the trees in the property too. We probably have quite a significant amount of tree work to take care of over there, just to clean it up.
The interior posts that are referenced as the church posts are really quite cool. You could easily take them out. They're not historic to that particular property. They're historic to a different property. They could be easily reused and incorporated into the new property, which we would love to do. And again, the front door is really cool. Those are the two elements that would be really cool.
I'd love to see those pillars in person, personally.
Yeah.
Give me a call, I'll meet you over there. We'll get you
Yeah,
in.
I'd love to, I mean, that's.
They're not as big as you might think. They're only about 4 inch diameter.
Well, it's cool
Maybe
though,
five.
because, you know, some of these properties have disappeared. A lot of times they've been recycled and they've gone to something else. I live in a house that was built in 1762 and mine was built from ship parts as well as first period houses. that were recycled, so it's kind of amazing when this stuff shows
I
up.
actually did work on for the company I was working for at the time, I worked on the house that's right at the corner of the toll building entrance. I wanna say it's.
It's a so-called 69 house.
Yes.
It's not actually from 69.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we know the house.
Okay. So I've done this for a long time, that goes back probably 20 years when I worked on that house.
Must have started very young, you know.
I did,
that
so
old.
I think 18.
But I think it's, I think it would be very important just to even just put eyes on it. Because that's a significant piece of Newburyport history. Is that, and which goes back to the William Perry architect who designed St. Paul's Church after the fire, and he was the chief architect of Williamsburg. So there is a kind of little connection there. But yeah, that's amazing. Well, Chairman, we just have the vote and then we can sort of get. into
Yeah,
a Discussion about the design.
Yeah, I think,
options,
I think
If
the
there are any.
appropriate
Yeah,
thing to do would be
which is
to,
really, our intention.
I think we can combine, unless someone feels different, I think we could combine, that the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation, unless you guys feel that we need to separate those.
Yeah, no, it's just.
Together is appropriate.
Okay, Mark, do you want to,
I'll make the motion. that
Okay.
This building that we're discussing is historically significant and deserves preservation.
I'll second that.
all right?
And considered for preservation.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so the motion is that we find the structure, the bungalow home at 94 Ferries Road is historically significant and considered for preservation. Mark Sandro,
Yes.
Chris Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey,
Yes.
Ed Normer,
Yes.
Glenn Richards,
Yes.
Chris Sartell,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well. So that motion passes. So I guess, next thing would be for you to.
So one of the reasons why we're here tonight is there isn't sort of like a full consensus over what to do with this from the entire development team. So, one of our options is full demolition. The other two options, and basically all of our options require, the permission of this commission. So one of them's full demolition.
Right.
That's certainly on the table. The other two options for this both involve picking it up and moving it.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Cause it's almost in the middle,
Right.
it's right in the way of, if you
Yeah.
wanna do 4 residences there.
So.
Mhm.
So those are our other two options, and
Yeah.
out of those two options, in terms of converting this to something. One of them is the conversion of this to a garage. And, and possibly keeping the front of this looking like that and
I
doing
see.
the garage in the back, so it could be. Combination garage and possibly there's
Where it
enough
is,
space in there for,
No, we still have to move it.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
almost, so
Regardless,
the
like
only
three-
option in
three options.
other than moving it is
demolition,
demo.
the other two
Okay.
involve picking it
I
up,
see.
and
Right,
and moving it. So, and one of those options is a garage with possibly sort of a
yeah,
small
or something.
office or workshop. And then the third option, which is also moving this, is converting it to an ADU. And,
Oh, okay.
so there's some
That's
challenges
accessory
with
dwelling
that.
unit?
That,
Is that
Yes,
an accessory dwelling?
but
unit?
it is
Yes.
1,200 square feet, so we would only have to have the 900 per the statute in Newburyport, so 900 would be.
the ADU.
Yeah, so we're only allowed to do 900 square feet, so what's involved with that is converting part of this to a garage.
Right,
Which doesn't count as
living space.
square footage, so those are, basically our
Yeah.
three options that we're looking at here, so. Some things, if we are picking this up and renovating it, and mind you, that, there's considerable
Yeah.
expense in
Yeah.
doing so, and. If this is an ADU, which is, it's a rental property, it's probably a break even.
Yeah.
Proposition at best, and probably renting it to a crazy aunt or two, and probably, I've heard
Yeah,
you guys have a few, we have a few of them, but it's at, basically it's at considerable expense and
Somebody has to take care of
just. Yeah, just the moving aspect of it is probably
Yeah.
30,000-40,000.
Yeah,
You know, we've done that before
Imagine.
years ago, and it was, you know, basically a $30,000 expense, and that's just moving it, and. You know, it'll require a new foundation and a bunch of renovation work to it, so,
Utility.
but yeah,
Very, it's expensive.
but it's not necessarily, you know, infeasible, it's just
Yeah.
sort of a break even
I
process.
saw the shoulders, I remember think that this probably doesn't have any city water and sewer or anything, does it?
No, it's all city sewer.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
both properties, both the red building in the rear and the bungalow property we're talking about here, separate utilities, city sewer, city water.
So some things that I'd like to do
Yeah.
to this, if it's the will of the commission to sort of like, this needs to be saved. We need to preserve it, you know, in terms of the front elevation here, you know, I really like those columns, you know, I like the porch rails. You know, we would keep all of that. The dormer, I can't stomach the dormer, so, you know, so, that would either need to, you know, go away or need to change to something that's sort of a little bit more craftsman-like, you know, with lower windows, with no siding underneath
Yeah,
those.
none of you
Keep
mentioned
in mind, yeah,
the
you
houses
know.
of that overall shape. Like the ones I mentioned on Story Ave, and they have their dormers are like fairly low shed
Right.
dormers with.
exactly, this
Yeah.
just seems sort of
It's a little
stylistically
incongruous,
inappropriate,
yeah.
this sort of sticks out to me,
Yeah.
so. You know, that is certainly something I would like to change, and, you know, lastly, this sort of like nub off the back too.
Yeah.
You know, probably needs to go away, right now that's serving, you know,
Right.
kind of as an entry.
It's just an entrance. That's it.
Yeah, it's sort of,
Just to
you
be
know,
a
sort of
service.
after the entrance, so.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, if it's picked up and moved, it needs to be sort of in the same orientation it is now, you know, and, you know, we would pick it up and, you know, we would actually move it, plan left, so, it is in front of, you know, the house that they're currently,
Right,
you know, currently renovating, which I actually don't have.
you'd rather go that way rather than the corner.
You know, of it, so,
Well, may I speak to
Yeah,
that? So
sure.
when we develop,
Sorry.
with our intention is to develop the corner lot so that the ferry road is, the front facade. But that Plant Street also has a front facade look so that you have that nice corner. And that's what ultimately we'd like to put is something that's going to last the test of time.
Yeah.
Be within the historical realm of Newburyport, so we're not going to throw a cookie cutter, you know, 1988 structure up, we're going to put something. And Scott can speak to the style in which we're going to, the houses that.
to be
he's designed.
determined, it's very early in the process, and, you know, one of the things that.
The reason why we chose him
Yeah.
though was because of his portfolio in town and
Yeah.
the structures really will last the test of time and they're just so beautiful and we want to spread that beauty. And ultimately, we're going to be living there for the next 25 years, so we have to look at it.
So, so with all of that in mind, so some like constructive feedback from the commission would be really helpful, because, you know, I'm really hoping to do is to avoid sort of burning calories, you know, and I want sort of like a real direction.
Sure.
You know, in terms of, you know, what we should be doing here.
Is the bungalow, I know there's an expense involved moving it, my preference personally would be move it, but it is, and I might think I'm okay with the. You're saying, keep the facade. It's a garage, it's kind of hollowed out with a workshop perhaps. For going to be.
Something.
Right, something, so it's utility, it's useful to the property, but at least has the illusion of being what it looks like from the
Right.
1920s.
That's a viable.
Personally, that would work.
That's an option.
For me.
And these garage doors would be along the back where that little nub is. And we would try to best sort of maintain like at least the look on the left side. Haven't really given much thought about what we're gonna do on the right side. There's a screen porch, it's a little bit of a wraparound.
Yeah.
Porch with the screen porch, which really wouldn't have any value to
Other
us.
than I would call it veranda.
That's to be
Old school.
determined, but yeah, that's the idea, is it sort of looks like,
Yeah.
you know. It did,
Yeah.
100 years ago.
When that part of town was almost country,
Yeah.
more like Newbury or West Newbury than
Yeah.
Newburyport.
Right.
Right before I
Even at the
follow up,
garage.
you wanna say something before I?
No,
follow up, Chris? No, so just following what Chris was saying, I think I feel very similarly. I feel terrible that it happened to be located there, because I understand from the economic point of view, which is not our jurisdiction at all, but we can't just ignore it, well, we can ignore it, I suppose, but I feel for you in that, if only it had been just off to the side, wouldn't be a big deal at all, right? But I think I feel very similar to Chris, and, that it's mainly, to me, I love the lower right there, well, with the exception of the dormer, I keep looking at it like this. It just, I find it charming, and to me, it's a reminder of how that north kind of end of town was back in that day, how it developed. It is an important, like I was reading from the guidelines before from the Secretary of Interior about, it's a representative of a time and place and a way of life and all that stuff, the development of that part of town, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I feel similar to Chris that given the situation and of course, the economic realities involved, if it had to be, if we could keep that as a throwback, well, not a throwback, but as a edifice that reminds us of that era, while yet, giving, you guys, reasonable options to do stuff, I personally would be okay with that. I'm curious to see what my colleagues gonna think too. I'm done.
Are you curious?
Sure, I am.
No, I think all of us are gonna probably land in but we don't wanna see it demolish it. And it's, I think, I don't know, I mean, that's the way I feel, I think, and if the only other option is to move it. It stinks that that's the expensive way, but I mean, it has so much character and it is really such an interesting property. It would be hard for me to vote to demo it completely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we couldn't, but it's tough.
So if we had to keep it, could we change the roof line back to what it probably was originally? Because the way that the slope, without the dormer, but that slope
Over the porch, I mean.
is probably not original. John, what do you think? You do?
I think.
That wide, long slope on the right hand
It's
side?
just, and the reason it's sagging is because it's on the frame,
Yeah,
as everything was back then,
Yeah,
Right.
it just needs to be significantly boosted.
But yeah, I mean, I think actually that's, part of the charm is that it has such a low pitched. Wide roof, which is so unusual for Newburyport. Right, it does, and we're saying it looks like a southern, almost, kind of.
because they don't get snow down there, that's why they have a pitched roof, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Does the pitch change from the house to the porch?
It does, yes, yeah, just below the dormer line, kind of swales out,
Okay,
just concerning the snow load, obviously, but.
hasn't collapsed yet.
Oh,
This is gonna sound weird. I like the dormer.
I'm kind of with you too, I don't know why.
I don't see that as a dormer, I know, it doesn't make any sense, I just.
Oh, man.
I'm not gonna force it. I know. I'm just saying, that's fine. Well, this is unique, it doesn't even look like a dormer to me, I know if it was originally part of the house, then I'm okay with it. But it almost seems like either possibly a nod to a church or Widow's Walk. That's,
Snow,
there's no, like, oh, but it was, and maybe it was an afterthought, maybe it was just a weird, who knows, it was 100 years ago, people do things, right?
Yeah, Mark?
And this is a conundrum because, I see this out very nicely somewhere in Mississippi. It has none of the Newburyport architecture features. While it is charming, it's in terrible condition. And, moving it is a major project, and anybody in their right mind, from a financial standpoint, would say just take it down.
Yeah.
What was brought to us by these lovely people here is the fact that there were some features in there that are historically very important. And for that, situation becomes much more complicated, because what do you do with them? Do you try to preserve these pieces for what they are? Or do you keep the whole structure? I think it's a really complicated situation. I don't particularly think that it is a lovely structure, but it doesn't make any sense to me. But I think the plan, if you make it a functional type of dwelling garage type of situation, might work. But it's gonna cost you a great fortune.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, it looks terrible because of the peeling paint, especially on the porch. But I, you know, my walk around, like the foundation, you know, the bricks nicely pointed, they're not caving in. It's actually, you know, as I think you discussed it, you know, the bones are like not bad, actually. Yeah,
Except for the burnt bones, so that makes sense. I saw some burnt bones and I couldn't figure out where they came from.
How was it? We're talking about in this house?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's a bunch of shot ones up in the attic, where there is a floor, I mean, you can't really access that
Yeah.
dormer because there's so many
Yeah.
floorboards missing.
Although in this case, having a good foundation isn't necessarily a positive for you guys.
Correct.
Anyway,
Well, yeah, I think the positioning of the property is what is gonna make it tough, but to give you guys enough direction, I think that. I'd say we're leaning towards, we would prefer that it be left as is. But. Yeah, you know, I don't know, I mean, I can see the case of saying like, you know, making it into a garage is. Is there something wrong with showing the facade of a home, but it's really just a garage?
I find that kind of, I've never
Well,
seen that before.
There's a couple in our neighborhood that it was a small, you know, Cape Cod, and they built a giant house on the back of it, and the Cape Cod became a 3-car garage. And, but when I look at it, I'm like,
yeah,
man, somebody had their Christmas where they're parking
Yeah.
that, you know, where that car is, but it's. Yeah, I think maybe if it might be a kind of thing if the bones of it could be used in another way on that property. But the home didn't survive. I think
yeah,
I think that we might be able to live with that.
yeah, and there are, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like if there really is this timber from an important church in town. You know, I think that's worth looking at and saying, hey, maybe that could be put into this new home that we're gonna build, and I think that might. You know. Check our historical box, if so to speak.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there are, Secretary of Interior guidelines that you may be familiar with, Scott, on adaptive reuse, which would be the appropriate in this case where it's not gonna be a single-family residence, but it's gonna be repurposed for a different kind of use. So there are some guidelines on how to manage that situation, especially if you need to either expand it or, you know, hold on to it or change it. So there are some guidelines on how to do that in a way that's sensitive to the fact, it looks like it's the consensus, since I'm getting the main part. We're getting for different reasons is that front and maybe that part side facade there. Right, so.
All right, well,
Are
Have
you,
you feedback or-
commissioners? Let's say there's sort of the same struggle that we're having.
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Similar, yeah.
May we go inside with you? Can we show you inside when you can see the?
I'd love to see it.
I think
that's.
I think a site visit would be really appropriate, just to,
Evening's okay, I do work full time.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
especially
weekends.
now.
It's
Days are
almost
longer.
easier, you know.
What, do you get off
Evenings or
or still
weekends are
light
great.
out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, I can
exactly.
get off late enough, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like a 4:30?
Probably, yeah, if you wanna,
Yeah, during the week.
we wanna look at a
Yeah, a
calendar.
little after 4:30 first, at least for me, but
Okay,
Okay,
around 5?
5:15?
yeah.
Yeah.
You work
What day is
fairly
good for
locally?
everyone? We'll make ourselves available as priority.
Does anyone?
I don't wanna do it tomorrow, it's supposed to be pouring out.
We'll pass the
Sure.
email from, and we'll figure it out.
That needs to be posted and.
No, we have to do, yeah.
No, it's not a meeting, and in fact, we're prohibited from deliberating anything
Oh, right, okay,
on a case like that, because it's not posted.
that sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so we'll figure that out offline, and we'll get back to you and
Great.
Very
take a
awesome.
look at it.
Thank you.
So we're talking about what happens to The barn you're living in, the
No.
called barn.
No,
I know, we're talking about the house, but the barn just stays
For them,
now.
Yeah, we have
to- we need to go
somewhere.
Yeah.
just so you're aware, the structural integrity is.
So it's blowing out in the middle, it's a gable house. So in the middle, about halfway, I'm probably thinking it needs some collar ties upstairs or something because it is starting to spread in the middle of the house. And it's very, very visible from the front of the house when you look down, softening the facial lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we have 2 young children, we're moving.
and I'm gonna be living there, my kids are gonna be sleeping upstairs, so, yeah,
We-
collar ties, something like that, you know, yeah.
But that's not open for discussion right now, that's just.
That's not.
Well, they're not proposing any demolition or anything.
Okay.
All right,
We have what we need.
Yeah,
great.
appreciate you guys.
Very good.
patience.
No,
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having
This
us.
is very helpful, thank you.
Wonderful.
I hope we can,
We can
I
next
know, I
week
haven't
sometime.
done where you can come up with something good.
Wonderful.
All right. Next, on the agenda, we have 15 Broad Street.
Well, the reason a lot of people didn't know about it, is we've been in England for so long, right? Yeah, I'm not trying to watch it. We just wanted to pass it over. Right, I surprised story. Doesn't, it should not be honest. So, all right, well, thank you. Excuse me.
I am gonna stand up, is that okay?
Oh, absolutely, wherever you're comfortable.
That's my next client.
Hi.
So, they called me a little while back, the house caught on fire.
Can you give your
Oh,
name?
my
and
name's
address?
Matthew Cummings
Oh,
Architect,
thank you.
Ipswich, Mass. We specialize in this work.
Mhm.
Okay. So, we did the original work with the additions in the back, and then she gave, Melanie and John gave me a ring, said the house caught on fire. The house didn't burn down, thankfully. It's an amazing amount of smoke damage and the back left L on the first floor, that was on fire, okay? But, the smoke damage is pretty extensive. Everything was just soot everywhere. So they said, hey, seeing that this happened, maybe what we can do is restore the original parts of the house to rehabilitation. And then, although we did a nice job with the additions, maybe we can do a nicer job with them this time around. Okay? Right. So, I'm just gonna, can I walk right up to this?
Sure.
Okay, yep. So this is the back out, excuse me, this is the lean-to in the back. And, this, just some points of information, this lean-to is not original to the house. There are some studs that seem sort of old, and then, but this right here is in the middle of the roof. This is the addition on the back with the screen porch that's new. And then from the side, you can see our addition sticks out, quite a ways. But you can't, it's hard to see the addition on the left side, of the street. And then they have a cute barn that's straight down the driveway, which is really nice. Okay. Can we just go to the next one? We'll see what's there. So what we're proposing to do is to, take the additions, the new additions, and move them, away from the visibility of the street more. Okay, and by doing that, we do need, if you wanna try to find the first floor plan, if you don't mind. No, let me just go to the next one. What the one after that? One after that, next. Here you go. So this is an original fireplace, and it was the original cooking fireplace, and the chimney goes to the roof, so we don't wanna remove those, okay? And so the other thing too is if we now have a chance to maybe push the additions back. So our idea is to put a little cute Beverly jog that just comes out about this spot from the side that works naturally with the roof line, okay? And by doing that too, that Beverly jog's gonna mask the additions that happen on the side. So if you go to the front elevation. Pretty good. So this is the original house, of course, the two over two. And then this is just a cute little Beverly jog, which of course perspective wise, you look straight at the house, you wouldn't see it. Right? And then the house extends up back and then the Beverly jog sort of masks this a bit, okay? And, we could take a look, and that's the chimney that we're preserving. When I take a look at the, opposite side. Okay, and then this is the opposite side, which this is almost the same that's what's there today. This is a little bit more massive here, but not much. And then this is more historic, where instead of it coming down, it's almost a flat roof. It has more of an appropriate salt block shape. Okay. Some of the details, I forgot to bring the window from my Jeep pickup, is that, the windows we use aren't even flange windows, they're all wood windows. And so they have band molds and 2-inch sills, and the sashes are integrated with them. And they're just lovely, the SDOs, all that kind of stuff, but they're not like an Anderson or a Marvin window, put trim around them. You look and say, that's almost like the real thing, they actually look like the real thing, okay? We do the same thing with the doors and the shingles and the windows and all that kind of stuff, so I think we can look at the next detail. Versus the one about the door. Oh, that's what people do. So for instance, when we put the rakes on, with the return, on the corner boards, we'll take sometimes we take the rakes and we put like a bead on it, so everything's just right. So we'll go to the next one, see some of those details here. So this is just a little canopy roof, just put a little chamfer on them and do the same bead. It's not really historic, but don't tell anybody, it's sort of cute, that's on the back of the house. And all the materials are natural, the wood, shingles, all that kind of stuff. So.
The roof shingles are?
No, that we're not gonna do.
Oh, okay.
That's a good idea though, but that's a different project.
Okay.
That's for those particular projects like that.
Ipswich.
Was it?
He said down in Ipswich.
Oh, yeah. So, if you go back to the original, this drawing right here. So what we're really doing is just taking this one section and just pulling it out for a Beverly jog. We're gonna take this non-historic roof that's almost flattish and just raise it up. And then the rest of this is just for the original, the modern addition we put on that you guys already approved. We just put a new one on that's, you know, sort of more hidden from the street.
Sure.
To the same shape.
Where was the fire damage?
It was in this, the jog down here in this section.
Okay.
Yeah. So this section, there's quite a bit of fire, but the smoke was. It wasn't like a little bit smoky, like my house got on fire when building it was a little smoky. This is, you walked in, everything was just black soot everywhere. Yeah. But even inside the house, all the moldings, all that stuff, preserving, cleaning, but we're gonna replicate and copy it. Yeah.
You know, you forced me to look up Beverly Jog. It was, find out Beverly Jog.
I just learned about.
Well, they're common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they are. I see them all the time,
Yeah.
but, so that's what they call it.
Yeah. When you find out why they call it Beverly.
No one knows, apparently.
Like, is it Sumner or Summer? Is it from the town or was it a person?
I don't know.
So, so that's the story. I can lend you more, but I don't think there's a reason to lend too much more.
All right,
So was this house for the historical commission before?
Yeah,
10 years ago.
yeah, so the
Oh,
additions that were on before were approved by you. The additions in the back are actually,
Okay.
they're very familiar. They just moved so that they're less visible from the street.
I'm wondering that it was probably.
well, I was gonna ask if it was already deemed as historically significant, so
Right.
we don't need to make that,
Yeah,
we don't need to make that, so, so it's.
It still is from back then.
What about preferably preserved? Or, so where do we need to start the
Yeah,
procedure on the demo or on that workflow there?
It could be at the demo plan, revised demo plan review.
Okay, so it would
That's my
be,
take, is that what you think?
Well, is it okay to comment? You voted on it before, so there's no doubt that you voted that it was historically significant.
Right.
Also, no doubt that you voted that it was preferably preserved.
right,
And then there's no doubt, because we built it, that you voted to approve the approved conditions.
Right.
They're almost exactly
Yeah.
these additions, but these ones are pushed in.
yeah,
So you can vote again, but like double solidify with 2 pieces of tape if you want.
Well, I'm just wondering if.
It would be a demo plan review.
Yeah, it's a demo plan,
Revised-
revised demo plan review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not even the preferably preserved, we're voting whether to, would be passing motion whether to approve the.
Whether the plans
The
accepted,
review.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just procedural. Okay,
I'm not sure what else we would draw, but if you wanted us to come back, we would, but I don't know what else we would draw. Because we have floor plans and elevations that show existing and proposed and all that.
yeah, no, I think what you've shown us is fine. Well, so I guess I'll just put it back to the commission. And do we have any questions, concerns about the revised plans? Yeah, I mean, I'll say it myself, I think it's completely appropriate, and I appreciate that you're putting some more period appropriate kind of details to it, so I think it's.
I'm kind of happy to see the roof be made normal.
Yeah.
You could put a dormer in.
No,
No, when I first looked at it, like, they wanna put a garage, but that's your already existing farm.
Yes, that's there.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, well, I unless anyone else has any other comments, I think I take a motion to approve the, I guess, amended plans, is that how it would be worded?
Revised. plan.
Revised plans? Would you like to say that motion? I can make it.
Sure, I'm happy to make a motion to accept the revised plans.
All right, now I'll second that. All right, motion to approve the revised plans, Mark Syndrome.
Yes.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh.
There probably should be public comment.
Oh. And I didn't say that.
Yeah.
All right, well, if anyone is there,
Is there anyone there?
There is one person.
okay.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to make a public comment and you're online, if you could raise your hand, so we know that you would like to make a comment. And if you don't want to make a comment, you're just here to listen or whatever, then don't raise your hand. And then anyone else is, no one's hiding behind me?
No.
Okay. Then I'll close public comment. Thank you for reminding me that. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going back to motion that the revised plans for 15 Broad Street are approved, and I'll go back, Mark Syndrome. Yes. And Christopher Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey,
Yes.
thank you. Ed Norman,
Yes.
thank you. Glenn,
Yes.
Chris Sutta.
Yeah.
And I vote EA as well, so those are passed, and you may move on to your next step.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Sorry for having to wait through all the longer one.
No roof deck.
Never decorate.
All right, well, thanks again and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, by
waiting
itself.
for the other applicants.
Okay. Well, goes down, all right, on the general business, the Fruit Street Historic District is, for some reason, lacking a member. So I think it would be good, it's not, we don't have to, is that what you're saying, it's not required that we have a member, but it's, or is it?
It's desirable.
Desirable, yeah. Has anyone thought about putting their name out for that?
Thought about it.
I was thinking hard about it too, and I was like, what do you, yeah?
Yeah, enough.
But, I also think it would be a fascinating, commission to be a part of a very micro version of what.
Yeah, how often do they meet again, Mark?
Yeah, once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah, so it's usually the meetings are no more than half an hour.
Yeah.
What is the general business on most of those?
Most of the business pertains to modifications that are made on various homes along Fruit Street. And they're, given the fact that it's a historical district, their attention to detail is quite intense. And so most of the discussion revolves.
Is this still just exterior That's not-
Exterior,
Yeah,
everything's
okay.
exterior, nothing interior.
Okay,
Most of the discussion and work revolves around advising the members who come.
And is it a certain night each time? Is it always consistent? And
Usually
what night?
Thursdays. Usually
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
But again,
Thursdays. Everybody does things on Thursday.
So wouldn't it conflict with our meeting?
Will we
Try to- we try to
we
alternate.
alternate?
So we set it up in such a way that it would not conflict with the historical commission.
Well, I'm not hearing anybody leaping up for the assignment yet, but I think we could all maybe chew on it, and if anyone,
Well, I'll seriously consider it.
I mean, I was seriously considering myself too, but I don't, I think I'm already a little overextended
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah,
Yes,
the chair gets pretty busy sometimes, so.
yeah, well,
Don't blame me for that.
I got a 13-year-old to rile around too, so. So I mean, I don't think we need to make a motion or anything, but just.
What is the procedure? Is it like with this commission, the mayor nominates and all that, or how does that work? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I have to lament about it all the time, actually, because I think there's a lot of bureaucratic process involved in order to get appointments to the boards and commissions, and our offices are constantly sort of monitoring and trying to make sure that these things are coming forward quickly and people get signed in, because we need to make sure there's quorums and whatnot, so. So long story short, I guess, is part of the, because it's based on the charter, and the city council rules, in essence, they do 2 votes of reading, they refer it to committee typically, there's rare instances where they're not even just reappointments, they'll typically send the committee to have a chat briefly about, interest in, context, whatever. But the problem I think that we run into a lot is we have, if you're on one board, like CPC has the same situation in Fruit Street, you might be on this board of commission and council's already approved you. But if we're gonna have you go to CPC, the council also has to take in that, send the committee, wait, it's a couple months later that you're actually being appointed, and then you have to be sworn in. So unfortunately, even if you've been vetted for one board, getting on the other board takes a couple months just to get.
But does the name need to come from does the name come from the mayor?
Usually it comes from the mayor, the appointments come, right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but we could volunteer.
Oh, yeah, I would suggest if you're ever interested, communicate with the mayor's office, obviously we could copy Kaner and I, as we are aware, we can kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing, it similar to with this, like you said in the letter of interest that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, well. Everyone consider that, and if you are feeling generous with your time.
And then we have 2 members that aren't here, so maybe we'll put it on another agenda. It's just like the people who aren't here.
Oh, there you go, yeah. Well, we can make a motion. All right, well, let's keep this thing going here. I wrote a draft letter to the East Row condominiums and a whole host of other folks. One note, I had tried to figure out all the CCs in there, and I don't really know all these. But I think we may not want to include Rob. I don't think he is. I don't think he would be a part of this procedure.
I know he was certainly involved,
but
wasn't he, he has an office in the building and he.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know.
Heavily involved.
I think we should to him or CC him. I don't know where.
Yes, CC would.
I think you should get a copy of it, essentially, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it won't matter quite as much, because he's a property owner there, so he'd be amongst everybody, I think, who should get the notice, essentially the entire association, I think, if it makes sense, right? So, every property owner who's listed there, and then obviously, this property management, which was part of the issue, I think, was this sort of transition, so, so we can identify the current property manager, because there was some transition there, I think.
Would he be CC'd as the chair of the ZBA or more as like the
As
trustee?
the property owner.
Okay, that's what I think.
I understand that he has that role in zoning board of appeals, but here that's not the context necessarily, so it's just the fact that he's the property owner at this point.
Right, so we'll change that, but otherwise, I don't know if anyone had a chance to actually read through it. I tried to surmise what I can name Monica brought to us and pointed out that, although it's not really our our jurisdiction to go fighting after the stuff at we're concerned about the historic property falling into the state of disrepair. Trying to keep it sort of,
How many units?
So I have a big concern about this.
yeah,
We spent an inordinate amount of time listening to this lady complain about what's going on.
yeah,
I think it's valiant of you to do that. But what keeps other people from coming in and complaining about their houses? So I really think that having this on the agenda was way beyond a call of duty for us, since it's really not our purview. And I really would hope that this kind of situation doesn't occur, because we can't go around listening to people about their leaking windows. I just don't think that's the role of this group.
yeah.
Defer to the commission, the chair, the commissioner's interjection.
No, go for it.
Generally speaking, we get communications, and then when they're running to a board or commission, we put it on the agenda for your consideration, we'll leave it to you, and then through the chair, how you want to handle that sort of thing, but generally speaking, we're typically passing those communications on you, so you can then
Yeah.
decide how you want to handle them.
And for this one, I think really, because we had met with them before about the stuff on the roof, I thought it was important to hear what she had to say. I do think that, when we asked about, are there other folks there who are having a problem, didn't get a real great answer, and I'm wondering, like, not that it's not a legitimate complaint, but it's like, if no one else is complaining, like, how serious is it? It might be really serious, but I think really, for me, it was just the fact that we had, as a board, had discussed that exact roof, and so it was.
Yeah, Mark, I can second what Vic is saying. For a couple of things, like that East Row building, we spent a lot of time with them on this whole roof thing, and it because it was so prominent and so key to that downtown architectural setting and everything, it was, we were all on the board, we were all concerned about it and all that. And so, from I totally agree, we're not into the business of, helping people resolve their landlord issue type thing. But I think it's appropriate for us to just say, hey, by the way, along with all this other stuff, this is a very important historic structure. So please, let's not let it, deteriorate because of this inaction on this leak, because that, as we all know, leaks do tend to, hurt the structure. So, yeah, so I think that was the context
I
that
understand.
kind of made sense, but
I'm concerned that
Yeah.
it leaves the door open to a lot
Yeah.
more of that kind of stuff, which
Yeah.
we really have some important issues.
Yeah.
I mean, listening to the story of the bungalow today, I think is really important. But again,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
voicing.
yeah, it's legit.
No, I'd agree, I think just the fact that, we were already kind of wrapped up in that particular case, I think if someone had just come to us with like,
It
Yeah.
makes sense. It makes
but,
sense.
and I did, like I said, I tried to, in my writing, not be, I tried to stay in our lane as well as I could, and not say, hey, naughty people, I was.
I think he did a good job.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, it's a really good, yeah, it's good.
So do we need a motion to approve the draft letter?
No, Alan has his hand raised.
Oh, Alan,
Oh,
You have a question?
I was basically just gonna go along with what everyone else was saying, just that I think we can vet these people out so that we're not turning into the complaint board. And if relative to the historical significance of a building or the building falling apart for some reason, then I think we should consider it. I don't know if we need to have the person come in and tell us all about it. Maybe this just goes through from one commission to another, or from the building department or something. I'm not sure how that would work, but I would agree that I don't want us to become that either, that people coming to complain about something's not relative to a historical structure. That's all I got.
all right, well, thank you.
As far as this particular letter, having, looked it over, I hope maybe my colleagues have also, I'd be happy to make a motion that, that the board express it's okay to and send that out with as expressing the sense of commission. That makes sense.
Yeah, motion to approves the draft letter.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds.
More digestible.
Yes, far more digestible. Thank you.
All right, and second on that?
A second.
All right, thank you. I'll make this quick here, let's see. Mark Sandrone?
Yep.
Chris Fay?
Yes.
Alan Markey?
Yes.
Ed Normer?
Yes.
Glenn Richards?
Yes.
Chris Hutto?
Yep.
And myself, Bill Bowles, yes. So that passes, and I'll make, do you want me to make the change to the?
Sure, you have the file.
Yeah,
to it, so,
yeah, what's next on our agenda? Approval of minutes.
Yeah.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve minutes of
Happens every time.
March 24th? Someone make a motion, I'd love to hear it. All right, thank you, Mark. And a second.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Alan. All right, didn't copy those down. All right. Motion to approve the minutes, Mark Sandrone,
Yes.
Chris Fay.
I was not here, so I will abstain.
All right, thank you. Alan Markey,
Yes.
Ed Normer.
I wasn't here either.
All right, thank you. Glenn Richards,
Yeah, yes on that.
Chris Hutto.
Yep.
And I vote yes as well.
We have
1,
four.
2, 3, 4,
Oh, good.
5. Yeah,
We have four.
and so that motion passes.
Huh?
Hmm?
I was? Oh, it come just because I didn't have my glasses on, so I was trying to read.
Sometimes people look at me and think I'm upset, it's just a resting Biff face. All right, well, I guess unless anyone else has any comments, questions, concerns, I take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I guess I made that motion, you seconded it? Okay. Is that, all in favor? Say yay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes, we've adjourned, thank you.
Split second.
Sure.
Who was that addressed to?
Sorry.
Who was that addressed to?
Oh, sorry to both of you, Glenn and Bill, sorry. But real quick, not that.
What did I do now?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
What?
Those days would be over.
Good for everything.
Oh, yeah. Just. Sorry. All right.